today we will go in depth and understand step by step how we can configure the authentication from database authentication, DAO authentication. What is DAO layer? Repository layer is called as DAO layer, data access object. Okay, so we have done in memory authentication when I created a list of users, 2-3 users, and gave them authorities. He is the admin, he is user. So now if I have database of users having hundreds of records, then how do I do the authentication, and then how do I do the authorization? Because based on the authentication, based on the user type, he will be authorized to access certain endpoints. Yes or no? So first let's see how it does the authentication and then how it does the authorization. So for that we have a class called as, make a class which extends which class? WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter. So let's follow this roadmap. So we will have a class. This is a step 1. So what is a step 1? We will have a class by what name? Which will extend which class? So this WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter is deprecated, no more used by the latest Spring version. After Spring version 3, we don't use WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter, but older versions will use it. So we will do both the ways with WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter, and I will also show you what is this security using SecurityFilterChain. Okay, so if you see the name of the playlist with the one playlist is my GitHub repositories, if you see. Okay, so this is Spring Security using SecurityFilterChain, and this is after 3.0. So after version 3.0, what is the version I am using? 2.7 something. This is the older. I'm using 2.6. So after 3.0, they have deprecated the service to which class? Web Security Configuration Configurer Adapter. So our step 1. So first we'll do using this, then we'll do without using this. Without using this is only 1% change. Only small change, not a big change. So the entire understanding depends on how you understand Web Security Configure Adapter. Then migrating to the latest version is only 1% here and there change. That should not be a problem for you all. So coming back to the roadmap. So first step is you create a class. This is the user defined class. So I have named it as Web Security. You can name it my Web Security XYZ, which extends which class? Web Security Configurer Adapter. If you are using Spring version less than 3. Okay. Now in this, as it extends the class, means it has many methods which it can override. Yes. So as I press Control space bar, as I press what? Control plus space bar, it will give me a list of which method I want to override. So first, the method which I will override is the configure method, which will contain the authentication manager builder class. What is the argument of that method? So I will use two methods, two configure methods. I will overload them. Method name will be configure. First method, the parameter is authentication manager builder, AUTH. This can vary. This I can give anything. And the second configure method is HTTP security, which is HTTP, right? So I need to override these two methods, so I have done override only. Okay. So we can do override based or we can do bean based. Okay. We can do the old method, which is extends Web Security Configure Adapter, uses the override technique, and the new method uses the add bean technique, that only has add bean, and this has what? Override base, extends base. Okay, so as we are extending, I will override. And which two methods will I override? The configure, which having the argument as manage builder, and the configure which uses the. Okay, now this authentication manager builder will do my authentication. Will do my authentication means is he a valid user? So it will go to the database and then check whether is this user valid. So I have to give the user's ID and password. So what is the username over here? Okay. Okay, before we go into understanding this web security configure adapter, let's try to set up the users first. Okay, let's try to set up the users. So the relationship is like this, that we will create two Pojo classes or model classes or entity classes, whatever you call them. Okay, and we will relate them with many to many relationship. Which relationship will we relate them? Many to many means one can have this many and this one can have this many, correct? So the two Pojo classes which I will relate are user and roles. User and roles. As we have also want to do authorization. What we also want to do? And authorization we are doing role based. RBAC. What is it called as? RBAC. Role based. Okay, authorization. So now this will be my which table? User table, and this will be my which table? Role table. Okay, so now this will just have, okay, user will have user name, password, user ID, name and password. This will have 3 columns. This will have how many columns? 3 columns. Okay, so this will have 3 columns. User ID, so we can call it as UID, then user name, and third column is password. So this will be 1. Okay, so if I have Alice, I can give Alice. If I want to give the email address, if you want to give, if your login ID is email address, then use email address. As normal string will also do. And then the password has to be decrypted. We are doing security, right? So we cannot give plain text over here like this. Alice 1 2 3. So it will always ask for a decrypted password. So how do we decrypt the password? So we go over here and we have a site, just type bcrypt and decrypt-generator.com and hit enter. Okay, and over there give your string, it will decrypt that. So whatever string I want to give, what is the string I want to give? Alice 1 2 3, and I go to encrypt it, and it is giving me this hash code starts with $2A, because I've done 12 rounds of hashing. Okay, so this is by default accepted. Just keep it, don't try to fidget around with this. And now this is what I will enter in my password. Okay, so I'll just .xyz. Make sense? Then if I have a second user, Ben, tell me how will I make the entry? Ben, and then what do I do? Go to the Decrypt website and do what? Ben 1 2 3 encrypt, and it gives me a hashing, and this is what I take. So I take this entire string and I paste it in the database. Make sense? While inserting the record, while inserting, I paste this entire password. Is this making sense to you all? Very good. So this is which table? Then I have roles. Okay, so depending on the roles we have, the users we have. So let's stick to 2 basic roles, user and admin. User can do anything, all the CRUD, create, read, update, delete. Sorry, admin can do all the CRUD, create, read, update, delete, but user can only create and update. No, only create and read, only CR, no update, no delete. Normal user only CR, only can create a record, post and can only read. He cannot update, neither can he delete. So who has the privilege of updating and deleting? So that is called as authorization. That we will do in the configure with the HTTP security. Okay. So as of now, I'm not going into detail of that. So then I will have over here one, and we will have user and use capital. Okay. Use capital for the entrance, and two we will use what? Admin. Okay. So if you are making it for your college, then one principal, two HOD, three subject teacher, four clerk. You can make any number of users, and then each will have a set of privileges. So principal has access to all, HOD only for that department. So with the URL which contains BSc department, only that URL can be accessed by the HOD. Okay, and then the URL which has BSc and Java can be accessed by the Java teacher. Okay, so I can authorize each user based on some endpoints. Making sense? And principal I can say all, permit all. What will I tell the principal? Permit all means all the endpoints you can access. And then based on the other users I can restrict the endpoints. This we will do in the HTTP security configure with the HTTP security method. So far so good. And then we will many to many. One user can have many roles. One user can have the HOD can also be a subject teacher of Java. So whatever privileges the HOD has, whatever privileges the Java teacher has, HOD will also have. Correct? So one user has many roles, and naturally this is understood. Okay, one role will have, that is natural. Okay, there can be 10 teachers. This is understood. Okay, so many times. So what we will now Spring will create a third table for you. We will create SpringBoot will create for you a third table, because we have to just do mapping of what, many to many. So what will it do? So now what, this is the reference of UID, correct? So what name you want to give to this? Okay, so see, try to understand this. This is which column? Primary key of user. So what have we named it? Let's say I name it as UID, and this is primary key of which column? What have I named it? RID. Okay, so now we know that when I will make a foreign key, it will be like this, right? So this is my table. This is my table. Okay, and this is my red part, and green part means where I am accessing this foreign key and this foreign key. Making sense or no? Not making sense to you all. So now what name do you all want to give to these columns? This you can specify in the SpringBoot, what name you want to give. Okay, so here if I want to give user underscore ID, what I want to give? The foreign key name is, and here if I want to give what? Role underscore. Where will I specify them? So are you getting the difference between UID and user underscore ID? So, and whatever name you want to give to this table. So what your table name you are giving? User underscore. Make sense to you all? So now let's see how we do this many to many. So create this model class, create this model class. Any problem? And then we will always try to fetch from a user. WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter. When you provide the ID and password, it will fetch the user. So with the user, it would want all the rows of that user. Making sense? So now if I fetch right over here 1 and right over here 1 means what? Alice is a user. And if I write over here 2 and 2 means Ben is the admin. So when I log in with Ben, what does it want? All the roles of Ben. I will not log with admin. I will log in with generic role name. I will log in with the username, no? What is it asking me over here? Username. So I will keep this the many to many part I will do over here. Okay, so many to many mapping we will do in this, and here what will we have? List of roles, right? What will we have over here? List of roles, because one user can have many roles. So if I put over here, okay, 1 and 2 means now Alice is a user also, Alice is a admin also. So we want always, so with the username we will try to fetch all its roles. So the user column will have how many attributes now? User model class, integer, UID, string, username, and string, password, and what? List of roles. And to this list of roles I will do which mapping? Many to many. Is it making sense? And what all will the role class have? Only two attributes. Which are they? Integer, RID, and string, what? String, password, role name. Make sense? So now how do we create them over here? That is only 2-minute job for you guys. So see over here, and this student class is my activity class on which I will do all the controller activities. The controller I will add student, delete student, update student. This is my this Pojo class. So this you all know very well. I don't have to go in detail about that. Okay. And as we are using Lombok, code is clean. So let's come to now what will you make first? Let's make role first. So let's come to role. Simple ID and name. Lombok makes it cleaner. Then coming back to the user. So ID, username, password, and now many to many. Okay, cascade is cascade type all. What cascade type does is, if I delete that user, that role also get deleted. They have a cascading effect. Okay, so this is just a syntax. Okay, learn this. And now join table. As we're making a third table, right? So what will the table name? Third table name be? What will it be? Users underscore roles. So what? Users underscore roles. Okay, now I am in which model class? Users. So over there I will write join column. Okay, and what will be the foreign key? User ID. And I am, which is the other class? This one, that is inverse join column, and that will be what? Role ID. So these are the names over here what you want. Am I understood? And now this roles will be what, by what name? So list of roles whatever I call over here. So I similarly, as now they all are private, they all are. So I will have a getter setter for get UID, set UID, get username, set username, get password, set password. Similarly I will have for what? Get roles, set roles, and it will return me. So if I pass the user over here as Ben, and I try to get all the roles of Ben. So what is Ben? Which ID? 2. So what is the roles of 2? 2. So only admin. So it will return me only admin. This is what internally Spring will do for you. That is not our heading. So are these two Pojo class understood? And how it will eventually look in the database? Understood that? So it will look like something like this. Users, roles, and user roles. So roles, 1 admin, 2 user, capital. Users, 1 Harshit, user ID, password, and username. Okay, and the fourth column is just for mapping purpose. That will not show over here, roles. Understood this? And then the user roles, 1:1, 2, whatever configuration you want. This understood so far? Okay, now let's come back to the which class? WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter. This was important. Okay, so we extend the WebSecurityConfigurerAdapter and we override the two configure methods. One configure method with the authentication manager builder one configure method with the HTTP security. Now I'm first teaching you the, so one will do the authentication, one will do the authorization. So now we are doing the authentication, that if I enter Ben, tell me whether he is a legitimate user or not. Okay, if instead of Ben I wrote Len, now what will it say? See, so here if you see, here if you see, here if you see users, this is Harshit, this is Harshit 123. What is this? Harshit 123. So if I say over here, if I say over here Harshit, okay, and I say anything, blah blah blah, and I sign in, what will it say? Bad credentials. What will it say? Okay, was it stopped? It seems to have stopped. The application is stopped. Okay, what it is telling me? Bad credentials, right? Because it is not matching with the database. If it matches, it will go inside. Okay, so then we come to the configure with this. So this auth is of which class? Okay, this authentication manager builder requires two things: the user detail service, that is, it wants a fully authenticated user detail in a proper format, which is given to it by the user table. Which table? User details. Which format? So open this parallelly. Okay. So now we are in the authentication manager builder. Using this auth, it has a function called as what? Authentication provider. So we will come here and using this auth, we are using which function? Authentication provider. So this authentication provider, it wants the encrypted password and the authenticated user. So I for doing that, which function am I calling? I am calling function called authentication. This is my own function. Okay, so I can write any name what I give. So I can write over here my authentication provider also. This is my own customized method name. Okay, which is over here. So I go here. What is the function name? So and that I can write this. So makes sense to you all. So it is, so now, so whatever this auth function needs, what it needs, a authenticated user with in a proper format, that the user is active, account is open, all that stuff, and the password should be encrypted. So here I will not enter when I am logging over here. While I am logging over here, will I enter it in the $2A, all that stuff? Let me start it for you. Okay, so now when I log into this, I will enter the user Harshit. Will I enter $2A blah blah blah? Is it possible to remember that string? What will I enter? Harshit 123. But in the database it is. So you need someone to take that string and encrypt it so that you can compare. So you need someone who can take the username, validate it whether it is a legal user, and you need someone who takes the password in a string format and encrypts it. That's why it can be compared. So all that work is done by this function. Okay. So now it will now segregate. Okay. So this is single point of contact, right? Now it will segregate. Now what will it do? Okay. Now we are doing which authentication? In memory or DAO? So now I will make object of DAO authentication provider. These are all inbuilt classes. Auth provider, new DAO. Okay. And now with this DAO, what do I need to set? User detail service and the password encoder. Set the user detail service and the password encoder. To this user detail service, I will pass a, again I am calling which function? No, it's not a constructor, it's a function over here. It's a function. These are now all started. These are all functions. If you want to give, you can give your function names. Just give whatever function names you want to give. These are all your, this is my function of the class. Okay, so this function will give me the user and this function will give me the encoded password. So for this I have two functions, set user detail service and set password encoder. To do that I am writing to my local function. These are two local functions. So they go to user detail service. Now this user detail service, what it does is, now for that user detail service, so let's come back over here. Okay, so for the user detail service, we, this auth provider will call a function called as load user by username to check whether that user is existing in the database. It will call which function? That load user by username is in a interface called as what? So we have to implement that service and override which function? Load user by username, which will then just a simple repository linkage. Okay, so to validate this user whether it is there in the database or not, we have a function called as what? Load user by username. That load user by username function is in which interface? User detail service. So I need a class which does what? Implements that service and then overrides that function with my own business logic. Okay, so for that we have told that is being done by this class. So I make an object of which class? So I pass it to over here. Just I am passing a plain object so that this auth can call the function. Okay, this auth provider can call that function because it has got the object. And who does the password encoder? New decrypt password encoder. Because what are we using over here? What are we using over here? Decrypt generator. So for that we will have what? New. So now this auth provider function object has got an object of user detail service, also an object of, and internally it will call the function. Which function will it call? Load user by. So now I will override that. So when it call, it should call my function. So will I override that? So I will come here and I will override that over here. Load user by. So whenever it will call that function, it will pass the username. So application has started. Okay. Oh, बताओ. क्या हो गया? नाम वो सेम सेम हो गया ना. हाँ, तो प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है सर. वो है भी. डालो माय आपने. When this function, the login form opens and it asks for the username, what the username I specify, that will automatically be passed to this function. Load user by. So it will go to the database and then fetch whether that object is there or not. Correct? So we'll take the username from there. Okay, and go to the repository, and we have a function by what name? So in the user repository, function is there by what name? So it will go and that will give you a user, right? So it will take that user, but I just don't want that user exists and it does not exist. If the user exists, I want with it all its parameters activated. So when I say user exists, I want it in this format. What is the username? What is the password? Is the account expired? Is the account non-locked? So it will say, okay, user, if it is there, if it is equal to null, throw the exception, and if it is not, then return what? Take this user and convert it to which format? In the format which the auth provider needs it. So that is been done by whom? My user detail. This is the service. This is just my user details. So this is that class which is doing it. So this is taking my user. So I make a local object of user. I am calling the constructor. It goes in the constructor. I pass the user. That user comes over here. And now with that user, I want to fetch all the roles it has. So this is what is being fetched. So from that user, once getter is what? Get the roles. So it will give me a list of strings. It will iterate through that list of strings and concat them in a authority. Concat them in a authority. That also is a array list. Then keep on adding them. Yeah. See over here. So this is a copy paste logic. इसको समझने की जरूरत नहीं कि कैसे कर रहा है ये. सिर्फ इतना कि ये काम क्या कर रहा है वो देख लो बस. तो वो जो यूजर है उसके जितने भी उसके रोल्स है वो आपको एक एरे लिस्ट में कन्वर्ट कर रहा है, ये कोड कर रहा है। ये आपको चैट जीपीटी दे देगा, आपको सिर्फ देना है, डालना है आपके इधर। ठीक है, सारे ले लिया। तो आपको देखना है कि भाई मेरा जो मेथड का नाम क्या है, मैंने क्या दिया था। तो सारे के हाँ, ये मेथड है यूजर डिटेल्स में, जो हमको डेकोरेट करके देगा ना ऑब्जेक्ट को, उसमें है वो कर रहा है इम्प्लीमेंट यूजर डिटेल्स। इसको यूजर डिटेल सब दिख रहा है पूरी पूरी यहाँ दिख रही है देखो पास, इसको कर रहा है इम्प्लीमेंट। तो जो हमको रिपॉजिटरी ने हमको जो बोला है यूजर है, तो मुझे सिर्फ है या नहीं, आई डोंट वांट अ बूलियन आंसर कि है या नहीं है। आई वांट इफ इट इज है देन इट शुड गिव मी प्रॉपर ऑल इट्स पैरामीटर्स, कि उसका अकाउंट एक्सपायर्ड है क्या, अकाउंट लॉक्ड है क्या, क्रेडेंशियल एक्सपायर्ड है क्या, इनेबल्ड है क्या, वो सब चाहिए मेरे को विद द अथॉरिटीज। तो वो मुझे कौन सी क्लास देगी, यूजर डिटेल्स। तो उसको मैं क्या करूंगा, एक क्लास बनाऊंगा जो उसको इंप्लीमेंट्स करेगी और उसको करेंगे ओवरराइड करेंगे सारे मेथड्स को। तो उसके 6-7 मेथड्स है वो ओवरराइड कर रहे थे। तो वहां से मैंने वो जो ऑब्जेक्ट पास किया उसे कंस्ट्रक्टर में आ गया, अब वहां से पूरा घुमा रहा है उसको। तो फिर उसके सारे के सारे रोल्स फेच कर लिया और सारे के सारे रोल्स को एक एरे लिस्ट में कन्वर्ट कर दिया, अथॉरिटीज की ओर रिटर्न कर दिया। ठीक है, ये काम किया उसने। प्लस फिर उसका पासवर्ड चाहिए तो पासवर्ड ले लो यूजर का, उसका यूजर नेम चाहिए तो यूजर नेम, क्योंकि वो क्लास है ना, यूजर तो क्लास है ना, उसी क्लास का ऑब्जेक्ट है ना वो, तो वो सारा ले रहा है। गेट पासवर्ड गेट यूजर नेम था ना अपने पास, गेटर्स कॉल कर रहा है वो, गेट यूजर नेम गेट पासवर्ड सारे। गेट रोल्स भी ऐसे कॉल किया उसने, गेट रोल्स भी यहाँ से कॉल किया, ये रोल्स है ना, तो गेटर सेटर ना, तो गेट रोल्स भी यहाँ से ऐसे कॉल किया उसने। ठीक है, और फिर इसके ये 4 मेथड्स है स्टीरियोटाइप, सबके ट्रू ट्रू कर देने का। अब ये सब आ गया किसके पास, वेब सिक्योरिटी कॉन्फिगर पूरा डेटा अभी आ गया। अब ये ऑथेंटिकेट कर पाएंगे उसको, बस यहाँ पर ऑथेंटिकेशन का चैप्टर खत्म हो जाता है। ठीक है, फिर वहां से आगे शुरू होता है कॉन्फिग ऑफ HTTP सिक्योरिटी। वो कब काम में आता, जब हम लॉग इन करते, कोई एंड पॉइंट को हिट करने आते, तो वो ये इसका स्टाइल है। एंड मैचेस यूज करता हूँ कि अगर रूट है या सेव है यानी इंसर्ट है या फिर सिलेक्ट ऑल है, तो सेव करने के लिए एक फॉर्म खुलेगा ना, सेव करने के लिए एक ब्लैंक फॉर्म खुलता ना, जब मैंने सेव पे क्लिक किया तो एक ब्लैंक फॉर्म खुलता ना, तो मैं एक्सेप्ट करता हूँ ये फॉर्म है। और फॉरबिडन पेज, अगर कुछ एक्सेस नहीं हो रहा है तो क्या लिखा था, फॉरबिडन, तो वो पेज सबको दिखाओ। हैज एनी अथॉरिटी यूजर, तो व्हेन यू वांट टू गिव दोज एंडपॉइंट एक्सेस टू मल्टीपल रोल्स, देन फंक्शन है हैज एनी अथॉरिटी, कॉमा देके करते जाओ। एंड यू वांट टू गिव टू अ सिंगल रोल, देन है हैज अथॉरिटी। ठीक है, तो जो जो एंड पॉइंट्स का आपको जिसको इसको देना है, तो एंड पॉइंट स्पेसिफाई करो और फिर क्या कर दो, डॉट हैज एनी अथॉरिटी, उसमें से कौन से अथॉरिटीज, यूजर और रोल्स, यूजर और एडमिन। समझ में आया तुम लोगों को। तो रूट का /student/save, तो /student/save मतलब क्या, तो ये क्लास के ऊपर अपन लिखा हुआ है /student और उसके ऊपर अपन ने लिखा हुआ है /save, ये एंड पॉइंट होगा ना, तो वो एंड पॉइंट के बाद चल रही है। तो वो हाँ नहीं होगा, क्योंकि हाँ बोला देखो मैंने, फॉर्म फॉर अपडेट और फॉर्म फॉर डिलीट किसके लिए, सिर्फ एडमिन के लिए। ठीक है, हाँ दिखाता ना। ठीक है, फिर ये सब ऐसा। ठीक है, और लॉगिन का परमिट, तो अगर लॉग आउट सक्सेसफुल है तो वापस वो लॉगिन पे रिडायरेक्ट करेगा। और अगर वो कोई अनऑथराइज यूजर है, यानी यूजर है और एडमिन का पेज एक्सेस करने जा रहा है, तो उसको एरर आएगा, तो एरर कहाँ राउट करने का, ये वाले पेज राउट करने का, तो ये वाले एंड पॉइंट में राउट कर देने का। तो वहां पर फिर अपन एक एरर का पेज बना देंगे कि एक्सेस डिनाइड। ठीक है, ऐसा ही ये सारे तुम्हारे ऑथराइजेशन के तरीका ही, बस ये है। तो ये था कौन से टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करके, so this was using web security configurer adapter. So all is the understanding of this class and the components of this class. So you start with this method, which is, then you go to this method, then this method segregates into two specification, the details and password. इसके ये सिर्फ दोनों के ऑब्जेक्ट लाके दे रहा है, क्या कर रहा है, दोनों के सिर्फ ऑब्जेक्ट लाके दे रहे हैं और कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। क्योंकि मुझे इनके बीन्स चाहिए, इसके लिए मुझे उनको बीन करना पड़ता, वरना मैं यहाँ ही कर देता, यहाँ पर ही कर देता मैं, जो है लिखा हुआ ना रिटर्न न्यू, पर मुझे इनके बीन्स चाहिए, तो इसके लिए इनके बीन जिसमें है उस फंक्शन को कॉल कर रहा है। इस टिपिकल एक स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्मेट है। और फिर ये अंदर कैसे जा रहा है तुमको समझ में आ रहा है। फिर तो वेब जो अपना लोड यूजर बाय यूजर नेम चाहिए मुझे, तो वो किसके पास है, सर्विस यूजर डिटेल इंप्लीमेंटेड सर्विस के पास, उसने करा और उसने ऑब्जेक्ट मुझे दे दिया लाके। तो मुझे ऑब्जेक्ट ऐसा नहीं चाहिए, मुझे चाहिए ऑब्जेक्ट पूरा डेकोरेटेड, वो कौन करके दे रहा है, डेकोरेट करके उसको माय यूजर डिटेल्स। हाँ दोनों नहीं, ये माय यूजर डिटेल्स तो इधर है, यूजर के इसमें आ गए, सिक्योरिटी में आ गई, क्योंकि ये सिक्योरिटी में आ गई इधर, क्योंकि वो बाकी काम भी कर रही है ना, एनेबल्ड कर रही, ठीक है। ओके, अभी ये अपना किससे हो गया था, वेब सिक्योरिटी। अब अभी अगर आपको ये सेम करना है किससे, स्प्रिंग 3.1 के बाद वाला वर्जन, तो क्या चेंजेस करने हैं, जो अपनी वेब सिक्योरिटी क्लास है जो एक्सटेंड करी थी ना वेब सिक्योरिटी कॉन्फ़िगर अडेप्टर को, तो उसको सबसे पहले क्या करने का, नॉट ऐड, तो वो मैंने आज अभी किया था, तो फिर वो, तो ये मेरी वो क्लास है, तो ठीक है, सिंपल सा चेंजेस करना है इसमें। तो पहले किसको क्या, स्टेप 1 क्या किया उसको, बोलो भाई, उसको एनेबल क्या किया वेब से। सेकंड, उसका एक्सटेंड्स पूरा निकाल दिया, क्लास का नाम वही रखा। सेकंड स्टेप क्या किया मैंने, रिमूव द, तो व्हेन यू रिमूव द एक्सटेंड्स तो ओवरराइड होगा नहीं, तो जहाँ जहाँ जब था ना ओवरराइड थे ना, वहाँ आएंगे लाल डॉट्स, यहाँ पर आते ना लाल डॉट्स, तो आएंगे लाल डॉट्स आएंगे, तो जाके रिमूव द ओवरराइड फ्रॉम बोथ द कॉन्फ़िगर मेथड्स, तो कॉन्फ़िगर मेथड्स पे जाओ और क्या करो, उनके ओवरराइड, क्योंकि हम अभी कोई क्लास को एक्सटेंड नहीं कर रहे ना, तो दोनों के कॉन्फ़िगर की क्या निकाल दिया मैंने, तो इसका कॉन्फ़िगर का भी ओवरराइड निकाल दिया और इस कॉन्फ़िगर का भी ओवरराइड निकाल दिया, ठीक है। ये समझ में आया तुम लोगों को। ओके, दूसरा क्या किया मैंने, जो अपना HTTP कॉन्फ़िगर था सिक्योरिटी वाला, उसको रिप्लेस कर दिया इस फंक्शन से। ये मुझे किसने बताया, ये मुझे बताया इसने, वेब सिक्योरिटी डिक्रिप्टेड, कि क्या करना है आपको, सिंपल सा स्टेप है, सिंपल, कुछ भी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड नहीं है, ठीक है। उसको मैंने अपने स्टेप में लिखा नीचे, ठीक है। तो वो क्या बोला था, जो तुम्हारा कॉन्फ़िगर फंक्शन है ना, कौन सा वाला, HTTP सिक्योरिटी, ठीक है, उसका कोड साइड में ले लो, उसका जो कोड है ना, कोड अंदर का साइड में ले लो उसको। कोड क्या साइड में, उसका कोड क्या था, उसका कोड क्या था, ये कोड है ना पूरा, यहाँ से लेके यहाँ तक, ये कोड साइड में कॉपी पेस्ट करके साइड में रखो बस, ठीक है। और फंक्शन उड़ा दो, फंक्शन क्या करो, उड़ा दो, ओके, फंक्शन को क्या दो, डिलीट कर दो, और क्या करना है इसमें, सिंपल सा, तो फंक्शन को उड़ा दो, उसकी जगह ये फंक्शन लिख दो, ठीक है। ये था ओवरराइड वाला ना, क्या था ये, और कौन सा वाला, एक्स्ट्रा, ये नहीं चाहिए ना, तो उसकी जगह क्या करने का, फिर ये कर लेने का, बीन वाला कौन सा, सिक्योरिटी HTTP है ना, पैरामीटर वही है ना, तो ये कॉपी करके फंक्शन यूज कर लेना, कौन जा रहा, तो वो कॉपी किया मैंने फंक्शन, और मैंने क्या किया, उसको निकाल के वो पेस्ट कर दिया, ठीक है। अब इसका कचरा पूरा निकाल देने का, कहा तो लास्ट लाइन छोड़ के पूरा कचरा निकाल देने का, और अपना पुराना फंक्शन का यहाँ पेस्ट कर देने का, एंड सेमीकोलन तक पेस्ट कर देने का, ये काम किया। कोई शक? तो ये अभी एक ही फंक्शन दोनों काम करेगा। ये हो गया ऑथराइजेशन। नाउ व्हाट टू डू? ऑथेंटिकेशन। अब उसका भी काम यही करेगा, उसका काम भी यही करेगा। तो कैसे करेगा ये? सेकेंड लास्ट लाइन पे क्या करने का? जो बता ना फंक्शन जो था ऑथेंटिकेशन प्रोवाइडर, वो कॉल कर लेने का। जो अपना फंक्शन था ना, ये फंक्शन है ना, ये फंक्शन कॉल कर लेगा HTTP के ऑब्जेक्ट से। जो अपना HTTP का ऑब्जेक्ट है ना, उससे फंक्शन कॉल कर लेने का बस, एज इट इज। ये जो है ना, ये जो लाइन है, इसकी बिल्डर वाला फंक्शन जो लाइन है ना, ये कॉपी करके डायरेक्टली यहाँ पेस्ट कर, इससे कॉल कर लेने का उसको, बस। बाकी अपने को काम खत्म, बाकी सब से। तो देखो, I'll show you the steps. फर्स्ट स्टेप क्या है? Add what? Enable web security. फर्स्ट स्टेप। सेकेंड स्टेप, remove extents. थर्ड स्टेप, जो दोनों ओवरराइड्स थे कॉन्फ़िगर के, दोनों को निकाल दो, ठीक है। फिर जो कॉन्फ़िगर जिसका क्या है, HTTP सिक्योरिटी है, उसको क्या पेस्ट करो, ये पेस्ट करो। और फिर क्या करो, जो तुम्हारा एग्जिस्टिंग कोड है, क्या है तुम्हारा एग्जिस्टिंग कोड ऑफ कौन सा कॉन्फ़िगर, कौन सा वाला, उसका कोड लोअर क्या करो, पेस्ट कर दो इधर। बट डोंट डिलीट द लास्ट लाइन, तो वो ऐसा कुछ दिखेगा, लास्ट लाइन को छोड़ दो, ठीक है। और फिर क्या करने का, जो अपना ऑथेंटिकेशन प्रोवाइडर फंक्शन है ना, वो इससे जो ऑब्जेक्ट है ना HTTP, उससे कॉल कर, बस खलास। सो फाइनली आपका क्लास ऐसा दिखेगा। और वो हो गया ओवरराइड। तो समझ में नहीं आ रहा? देखो, ये जो फंक्शन था ना ऑथेंटिकेशन प्रोवाइडर, ये कौन कॉल कर रहा था? मैनेजर बिल्डर। अब अपन क्या कर रहे हैं, यही फंक्शन, कौन सा फंक्शन है ये, इसको डायरेक्टली किससे कॉल कर रहे हैं अपन, किससे कॉल कर रहे हैं? तो HTTP का ही फंक्शन मेथड है, क्या नाम का, और उसको क्या पास कर दे रहे हैं अपन, ये फंक्शन का। हाँ, ये ऑथ का जो था ना, ये ऑथेंटिकेशन प्रोवाइडर, ये अभी अपन इससे नहीं, अपन इसे फंक्शन यूज नहीं कर रहे ना अपन, अभी ये काम किससे कर रहे हैं, HTTP से कर रहे हैं। तो ये ऑथ जगह क्या आ गया, क्योंकि अभी अपने पास एक ही HTTP वाला फंक्शन यूज कर रहे हैं, इसकी जरूरत नहीं, इसको डिलीट कर सकते हैं, इसकी जरूरत नहीं। तो अभी अपने को दोनों जो पुराने कॉन्फ़िगर है वो डिलीट कर देना, दोनों पुराने कॉन्फ़िगर डिलीट कर देना है। तो इसका तो पूरा काम HTTP ने ले लिया, ये भी काम कौन कर रहा है, ऑथ डॉट ना, ये काम किससे करा दो, HTTP से करा दो, है तो वही चैनल ना, समझ रहा?